This is the Positive EQ Perspective, where you'll find a more positive outlook on life by developing your emotional intelligence. My name is Kirsty Gwynn. I'm a coaching psychologist and speaker, and I'm passionate about helping people to experience more calm, contentment, and joy every day. Have you ever been so tired and you just want to go to sleep but you can't because your mind is racing? Or maybe you fall asleep okay, but then you wake up in the middle of the night, right? This always seems to be around 4 a.m. for me, and you just can't get back to sleep. And you're desperately trying to still your mind so that you can relax and drift away to dreamland, but you can't stop thinking about all the things that you have to do tomorrow, or maybe you're worrying about something or playing something over in your head that irritated you or made you mad or that you're feeling resentful about. A busy mind is one of the biggest obstacles to sleep, and unfortunately it just seems to go kind of downhill from there, right? When you haven't slept well, it's so much easier then to get stressed out during the day or to feel overwhelmed or to make silly mistakes, to take things a bit more personally than you probably would if you had gotten a full 7 to 8 hours of shut-eye. Insomnia can be incredibly frustrating. And finding ways that we can help ourselves to sleep better not only feels good, but it actually can have a pretty profound effect for our mental health, right? There's now research that indicates that most episodes of mood disorders, looking at things like anxiety and depression, were preceded by at least several weeks of poor sleep, right, before that diagnosis was made. So what this research suggests is that getting enough sleep might be preventative, right, and it also might be an essential part of recovering from a mental health problem, from a mood disorder specifically, like anxiety and depression. And I think this is definitely an area where we need a lot more research to really be able to unpack it. In today's episode, we're going to talk about 3 techniques that you can use to improve your ability, both one, to fall asleep and then to stay asleep, right? All of them are going to help you to calm a racing mind and relieve any stress that's getting in the way of your sleep, because let's be honest, it is almost impossible to sleep in the context of these things. And the techniques I'm sharing with you today are ones that I personally use on a really regular basis, right? They're a big part of my own sleep habits and how I manage my sleep, particularly if my mind is busy and getting in the way of that. So I want you to stick around till the end. All 3 of these techniques have been really helpful for me. We're going to be looking at one technique that can help prevent negative thoughts more and make you less likely to have them. It's going to help you to sleep more soundly. And then we're going to look at some ways that we can manage that busy mind, those racing thoughts. What can we do to deal with them and be able to shift back to sleep? Right, whether it was that we couldn't fall asleep in the first place or that we've woken up and then we couldn't stay asleep essentially and we're struggling to go back to sleep. And one of them in particular has been an absolute game changer for me. So I hope that you're going to be able to walk away and see as profound a difference as I saw when I learned these techniques. So the first one is to establish a pre-sleep routine. So you know how children need a bedtime routine, and it's generally, it's going to be like dinner and bath, and we're going to read them a story or something like that. Well, it turns out that as adults, we never really stop needing that. In fact, I would argue that the more busy and stressful our lives become, the more we need to give our minds a chance to wind down, right? It actually, when you think about it, a child surely has less stress than we have, and yet we expect that we should just be able to switch off. If we're going straight from a busy working day into bed, or maybe we're taking care of other different tasks and responsibilities, whether they're to do with work or parenting or general admin, we're likely going to struggle to switch off, right? When we're trying to get things done, we need to be alert and we need to be focused. We need to plan and analyze and make decisions, maybe problem solve. But sleep requires your mind to lay these abilities aside in favor of rest. And that means that we need to give ourselves some time to transition from one space into another. And a general rule of thumb is to allow at least 90 minutes or so to wind down before bed, but we're ultimately all different. So some people might only need 60 minutes, right? Some people might need longer. So personally, if my days are particularly busy, or if my stress level's higher, or maybe it's just the way my mind is built, I need longer than that, right? So it's going to be different for all of us in terms of what we need, and it can change depending on our stress level at any given time. Having a pre-sleep routine like this, it might sound like effort, but it works for a number of reasons. So one, it's going to help us to establish more consistent patterns of sleep. When your sleep patterns are predictable, you'll notice that it'll become easier for your mind to switch off and drift to sleep, right? So we're already seeing less likely to have those negative thoughts, or sometimes the thoughts aren't necessarily negative that are keeping you awake. They often are, possibly, but even thoughts, that are maybe more problem solving or creativity based, or excited about something, we're going to also be able to calm those down. That predictability is really important for your brain too, because ultimately your brain then knows, okay, this routine and what's happening now and the time that I'm going to bed is consistent, and the brain can then start consistently producing that hormone of melatonin, which helps you to fall asleep night after night. So part of my pre-sleep routine, for example, is nothing too complicated, but part of that is just that I like to read a few pages of a good book, good fiction novel before I go to sleep. And I've tried it out, and I just don't sleep as well if I don't do that, right? There have been times where I thought, oh, well, I don't really have time now, I'm going to bed a bit later, or something like that. And I really find that the act of reading, even if it's just a few pages, has become a trigger for my brain, like a signal. It's time to go to sleep now. And that's really helpful. So you can find something that works for you, right? So secondly, this works because you can be really intentional about using the time before you go to sleep to relax yourself. When your mind is racing, you're essentially in a high activation emotion, right? So we have different emotions have different, we call them almost valences of energy. And if we're feeling something like anxiety or anger or excitement, these are all high activation emotions, right? We can just, even when I say them, you probably imagine, yeah, they like promote movement, right? What we need is a shift into a low activation state where it's not very alert, right? Which will then mean that you're less likely to have a busy mind when you get into bed, or that it's going to calm down a lot quicker. So doing things that can help you to shift your focus right into that feeling of calm, it's going to bring about that feeling of relaxation and calm and help you to get to that space. Maybe it's taking a bath, or having a nice cup of tea, or listening to some relaxing music. Maybe it's reading a book like me. Maybe it's doing some kind of mindful movement. Some people might find, well, so, a nice relaxing TV program kind of puts me to sleep. Typically the advice is that we want to stay away from screens in those 90 minutes, right? But you might find certain affect you on others. So I know that I can watch something on TV, it's a bit further away. However, I can't stare at my mobile or my cell phone, depending what country you're listening from, and that's going to keep me awake, right? So again, experimenting, learning, and I think a great place to start is to just say, okay, 90 minutes, no screen time. Let me create a calm, dark environment and really set myself up for sleep. Then I can start saying, well, what if I change this one element and see how it affects me personally? So the second thing that we can do in order to calm that racing mind so we can sleep is to actually make peace with a lack of sleep. So hear me out here. Let's imagine that you are either lying in your bed and you're trying to go to sleep, or you wake up in the night and can't get back to sleep. In addition to whatever busyness in your mind is keeping you awake, do you start to have thoughts about your lack of sleep? Maybe you find yourself thinking things like, I just can't sleep, or I have so much to do tomorrow and now I'm going to be absolutely exhausted. So not only do you have any worries that were keeping you from falling asleep in the first place, but then we also have this additional stress about the fact that we can't sleep and the impact that that's going to have the next day. This one was so true for me. I would think things like, I never sleep when it's most important to, right? These really frustrated thoughts, or I hate not sleeping, or, I cope terribly without sleep. I'm someone who needs my sleep. And another thing that I would do on top of those negative thoughts is that the next day, if things weren't going as smoothly as I would like, or I just wasn't feeling great, I would link that back to my lack of sleep. So I'd end up thinking, this is just because I didn't sleep well last night, or, that's why this is the way that this is, and it would have been better if I had slept, right? And so I'd carry that frustration with me throughout the day too. The issue is this attitude actually significantly holds us back. As we begin to think these thoughts, we become more stressed and we put more pressure on ourselves to sleep. And it's that really prevents us from falling asleep and staying asleep. We want to try and replace these thoughts with ones that are grounding and really trust in our ability to cope with the lack of sleep, because to be honest, it's nothing you haven't done before, right? So when I became aware of the importance of sleep attitude, some things I just started saying to myself, when I couldn't sleep, was just these reassurances. I've dealt with a lack of sleep before and I managed fine, right? Or it's not the end of the world. I've gotten through a lack of sleep before and I'll do it again. Right? I've also tried to pay more attention now to how I still manage to do things when I haven't had much sleep. So I kind of point out to myself that, hey, I still managed to get this piece of work done, or I actually still had a good time with a friend the following night, even though I was running on just, minimal sleep. It hadn't derailed my whole day, right? Which is something that it felt like when I was getting so frustrated and worked up about the fact that I couldn't sleep, there was really this narrative that I was telling myself of, this is going to ruin my day, or it's going to derail my day, and I'm not going to be able to put my best foot forward, and so on. And if I think back, that's not an attitude that I always held about sleep. I think in my early 20s, I kind of didn't really care if I didn't sleep much. However, I think that as I learned about the importance of sleep, I maybe became a little rigidly holding on to, well, I need my sleep, right? And then I could become really stressed about not getting it. So I actually only learned this specific technique just a few months ago. And I have to say that there's been such a dramatic shift for me and it's completely changed my sleep pattern. So I really thought I have to include it in this podcast. I have to do a podcast about this, and hopefully it can help someone in the same way. Right? Just being rational with myself, grounding myself, and not getting as worked up about not sleeping. So staying calm about lack of sleep, what it does is it helps me to step out of that spiral where I was getting more and more stressed about not sleeping. And when we avoid getting stressed, we're obviously relaxed, right? We're more relaxed, or we're calmer than we would be if we can went down that path. And that then means we're kind of tricking ourselves here that we're more likely to be able to fall asleep, right? So we don't want to rigidly hold on to that. I'm trying to fall asleep. It's not the kind of thing that we can force our way into. But by not becoming stressed and just giving ourselves the reassurance and say, if I don't sleep, I'll deal with it. I've done it before. It'll be okay. Can really help us to relinquish that negativity, not get caught up in that stress. And then maybe that helps us to fall asleep. But if it doesn't, at least we didn't carry all that extra stress and negativity with us, right? And we were a little more calm or chilled about it. The final thing that we can do is switch to a relaxation technique. So if your mind is racing, it can be really tempting to lie in bed and just try and switch off those thoughts. And I know I used to think that, surely if I get up, I'll be reinforcing my kind of wakefulness, my being awake. And I kind of wanted to tell myself, well, I'm not getting out of bed because it's time for sleep now, right? Surely that's the way to teach my brain. However, if our mind is full of thoughts, continuing with them ultimately just means that we get more and more tangled up in whatever is keeping us awake. What we learned in the last section about changing our perspective about sleep can be really helpful, and in some cases it can be enough to help you fall asleep, right? There's been instances where I found that it's enough. But sometimes we need a little more. It depends what kind of thoughts are keeping us up. And it's a good idea then to actively shift focus. We can't just calm our mind. We can't just switch our thoughts off. If only it was as easy as kind of flicking a light switch. We can't do that, but we can shift our focus to something else, knowing that ultimately our focus, if we fully choose it, can only be in one place at a time. So actively refocusing our attention on the present moment and doing this through the use of a relaxation technique. So this means that we're going to ultimately be turning our attention to some sort of thing that's happening in the present. So maybe we try a deep breathing technique, right? It doesn't have to be anything very special, just in through the nose, nice deep into your belly, right? So really breathing deep into your belly and breathing out through your mouth and releasing the air almost slowly, like releasing the air from a balloon, like, right? Really, in a relaxing way, and really extending that exhale. That activates the calming response in the body, and it soothes the brain stress system, and actually we see reduced brain activity, and it's going to help you wind down, right? So 20 to 30 breaths, keeping your focus on that breath, often going to help you just kind of gear down, calm the thoughts, calm the brain area that is creating those thoughts, and going to help you to go back to sleep. You could try a specific guided technique, right? So I absolutely love some of the relaxation techniques that the Calm app has. They have on there, you can listen to sleep stories, which are really just bedtime stories for adults that are read in these really relaxing voices, and they have lots of great actors and things that are also reading them with really lovely relaxing voices. They also have some pretty funny ones on there, like the GDPR legislation or the shipping forecast. They can basically bore you to sleep if that's what you're into. So they have, there are different sleep stories you could listen to. You could do a progressive muscle relaxation. So this is one of my favorite if my mind's particularly busy. Doing something a little more active creates, needs a little more focus. Just means that you're starting at, say, the bottom of your body, so your feet, your toes, you tighten those muscles, and then hold, and then you would release and really focus on the sensation of that tension releasing from your feet. And then you'd go to your calves, your thighs, right, and you move up your whole body, even to your face, and often that is enough to kind of take your attention off the thoughts, calm you, and put you to sleep. What I'll do is I'll post this as a blog on my website too, and I'll share some links on there to some free sleep relaxation techniques on there, because the Calm app, they have a lot on their paid app, but they have a wonderful YouTube channel with a few sleep techniques. So what I'll do is I'll put that on my website for you. So if you want to access those techniques, just head to positiveeq.com/blog, and you'll be able to find them there. If you bring these three techniques together, right, winding down with a pre-sleep routine, which is going to help you prevent those thoughts, that busy mind that's racing thoughts in the first place, trusting that you can cope with the lack of sleep, and using relaxation techniques, you'll soon find that your mind is quieter and you'll sleep more soundly. If you're looking to calm negative thoughts, accept yourself, and live joyfully, then you need my free roadmap to overcome negative thinking. You'll discover 7 steps to follow, as well as 3 mistakes most people make trying to improve their mindset and life that only make things worse. Visit positiveeq.com/free. That's positiveeq.com/free.